After hiatus for a generation, Volkswagen's Golf is back as a three-door in flagship front-driven hot hatch form. But do the bundled-in goodies of the new limited-run 7.5 Golf GTI Performance Edition 1 stack up in practice as much as they do on paper? Hooray, the sexy three-door body style has finally returned. More output, tricky diff, bigger brakes and wheels, it covers all the go-faster essentials. It certainly feels fitter than the regular GTI by the seat of the pants. The less practical three-door format mightn't suit buyers otherwise keen on the flagship Performance Edition 1 package. 7-speed dual clutch isn't the most responsive unit in attack mode. The techy stripper theme is a little incongruent. Doesn't have the outputs of last year's 40 years special edition. While there are truckloads of topics where you mightn't utter Volkswagen Golf and Porsche 911 in the same breath, they're kindred compatriots in an important area. Both struck successful formulas long ago and have benefited from evolution at the hands of many since. In either case, the term iconic is richly deserved and hard-won, if by measures sometimes felt rather than seen. A byproduct of success that breeds range proliferation and variation, is an Olympic-sized gene pool of spec and componentry, a part-spent product planners can have a proper party with to create limited editions that compel petrol-head customers' whims, rather than merely tarting up product to shift more volume, though surely there's a German phrase for handy commercial upshot. The new 2017 Volkswagen Golf GTI Performance Edition 1 is all of these things. It is evolved, if relatively surprise-free. It part-bends the familiar while adding a smattering of the new. It sits as a logical midpoint between the regular GTI variants and the flagship Performance Golf R versions within the newly launched Golf 7.5 midlife update. And it's a likable and desirable go-fast golf mashup seemingly aimed at particular petrol hedonistic buyers' tastes. It's this last bit that determines, with some subjectivity, whether the GTIP, as Volkswagen calls it, is merely good or somewhere up in the bloody excellent ratings. At $47,990 list, the GTIP is $4,000 pricier than the regular GTI with DSG, $43,990, and $5,000 more affordable than tipping into a manual Golf R, $52,990. The 5-strong range is topped and tailed by the base manual GTI 5-door, $41,490, and the R hatch with DSG, $55,490, which will remain the range topper until the Wagon and Wolfsburg specials lob sometime after the August 7.5 GTI and R launch. Of course, it's the $4,000 step up where the extras loaded into the GTIP are best measured. For a good many shoppers, the lift in power from the regular GTI's 169 kW/350 Nm to 180 kW/370 Nm kicks things off nicely. The addition of a so-called front differential lock, an electronically controlled variable unit capable of 0 to 100% slip mitigation between the axles, and larger brakes amply certify the performance namesake and justify the price premium. And that's before you factor in that the GTIP gets a 7-speed DSG, whereas lower-spec GTIs get the time-honored 6 forward cogs in either transmission choice. So far so good, though lifting the value pitch is that everything loaded into GTI's $1,600 optional driver assistance package is fitted standard on the GTIP, including radar cruise control, blind spot monitoring, rear cross-traffic alert and dynamic light/lane/park assist systems. Inside the cabin, the GTIP adopts a unique honeycomb microfleece and suede-like leatherette trim design and fits digital instrumentation that's optional in the regular GTI, as part of a $2,300 infotainment package. Meanwhile, the exterior scores Brescia-style 19-inch wheels instead of GTI issue 18s, high-spec premium tail lights with dynamic indicators and a choice of dark iron blue metallic or, as fitted to our test car, a tasty eggshell-like finish called white silver metallic. For a complete rundown of GTI and GTIP specs and options, see here. More dangling carrots? How about exclusivity? For one thing, Volkswagen Australia is only bringing in 150 examples. For another, and for the first time in a generation, the GTI P is the only Golf available as a 3-door. If you're in the opinion camp that the 3-door body style is sexier, sportier, and cooler, you're not alone, though it obviously comes with a compromise of practicality. It takes deft Gumby-like contortion skills for adults to climb into or out of the second row, so if you've got kids or need regular 4-up capability as a priority, best go looking at any other Golf of the 7th generation. The trim and tech upgrade lift the perceived quality of the cabin nicely over the more familiar, more basic tartan-cloth GTI treatment, though it might seem a bit disjointed for some buyer tastes. The slick upmarket facade of digital instrumentation and smartphone-like infotainment interface of the 8-inch Discover Media system seems slightly at odds with the mechanical seat adjustment and lack of start/stop button. Yep, it's the good old key-in-barrel arrangement. The driver's active info display, as Volkswagen calls it, is clear and easy to digest and, while user-configurable in the submenus, lacks the degree of one-touch reconfiguration and the flashy eye candy you'll find in, say, Audis or BMWs, less fancy, but everything you need. Ditto the Discover system, which is quick in response, patently upmarket and has one of the best 360-degree guided parking sensor systems around as well as an excellent rear-view camera design. Clunky, though, is the distracting process of switching drive modes, requiring accessing the menu via a console button then selecting whichever mode on the media screen. Those bespoke seats, too, are up for subjective debate. Personally, I'm a big fan of the textures and materials at play, sporty and purposeful, much like the shapely contours, but if you're of the opinion that leathery, heated, electrically adjustable seating goodness should come bundled into a $48,000 small hatchback, you're plumb out of luck with GTI P. You can, however, have it optioned, $3,900, into lesser GTIs and still safely come in at under $50,000. It seems, then, that the GTI PS is somewhat at odds with itself. In a great many areas, it plays the high-performance stripper card. In others, such as techno-wizardry and active safety, it comes across as downright opulent. And yet it's a strangely compelling blend, again, not to everyone's tastes, where there's a certain rawness and simplicity that doesn't feel like overblown, though it doesn't feel as outright basic as, well, a basic GTI. Personally, it's got a lot of good stuff in plenty of the right places. I don't like it, says the better half, moments after I tell her that, no, you can't buy a GTI P in conventional manual form. For the woman who owns a Mint Mark V 3-door manual GTI after her lesser half spent months tracking one down, the lack of old-school stick-shifting option is a deal-breaker. No doubt many prospective buyers will feel the same. Asked whether the prospect of base 3-door GTI, manual or not, might ever surface any time soon in Oz, Volkswagen Australia communications boss Paul Pottinger says that response from the 3-door performance version has overwhelming enough that we're looking at every and any hot Golf variant we can secure, from Germany. The rawness creeps into the GTI P experience on the move, partly with the tempered gruffness from the exhaust note, partly due to the slightly fidgety ride quality at low speed. It's less an annoyance, more of a bit character dialed in, you sense, by design. The powertrain itself is quite the opposite, if in positive ways. Dig in, and that extra 20 Nm not only adds a few shades of extra purpose during hard launches, the extra herbs translate into a more effortless and progressive drive around town using part throttle. Punch. There's plenty, enough to trigger traction control without much provocation, though that so-called diff lock does a commendable, and noticeable, job of helping those 225mm Pirellis bite into the hot mix. That said, as usable and satisfying as they are, isn't 180 kilowatts and 370 Nm short-changing GTI's potential? I know, the old Performance Special only produced 169 kilowatts, but last year's unfortunately named GTI 40 years produced 195 kilowatts all day long from its 2.0-liter turbocharged 4 and a whopping 213 kilowatts, and 380 Nm, on overboost which kicked in on third gear and above. GTI-P is good, then, if not quite as great as it might otherwise be. Regardless, the tricky diff really is excellent, virtually eliminating torque steer and allowing the front end of the car to track its line through corners under heavier throttle application than you imagine possible. And that's not on smooth and grippy racetrack surfaces, but across tricky, eminently lumpy, and at times wickedly twisty sections of Aussie back road we used to put the GTI-P through its impressively spirited paces. I'm not quite as impressed with the 7-speed DSG as I'd hoped. Part of the reason is I'd presumed it was a more tightly packed ratio spread than the regular GTI 6-cog DSG. Instead, there's significant engine RPM change shifting up or down and, around town, it rarely climbs out of 6th. 7th, then, is really for fuel-sipping highway cruising, no bad thing, where on a good run it'll return low 7s along a 100-kilometer jaunt. Call it 10s around town. It turns out that, with more than 350 Nm on tap, the 7-speeder is a fitted option because of its tougher build and higher torque rating, and the same unit is used behind a variety of other VAG engines, says VW Oz. On the march, when self-shifting in sport drive mode, it's a fairly handy ally, but in full manual mode while you're using the paddle shifters, it can be a bit inaccurate chasing the red line during upshifts and unresponsive tapping downshifts. Let off its leash, the dynamics impress. The assertive front end is complemented by accurate, nicely weighted steering brimming with feedback. And the fidgety around town ride transforms into taut, planted handling that's keenly neutral in balance. Get the suspension stroke working for its keep, and the payback is a satisfyingly playful and adjustable character that's unflustered by mid-corner bumps or in the habit of throwing up any spooky or unpredictable traits. It certainly feels more agile and match-fit than our long-term Golf 7 GTI. Its limits are higher, maintains its composure better, and its abilities bloom with more driver satisfaction when pushed. And you really do notice just how polite and well-rounded the GTI formula, even one as fiddled with, is once you cool its heels and revert back to its more comfortable drive settings. Given the chance to run amok in Wolfsburg's product planning department and given unfettered access to the GTI parts bin, is this the version my wildest dream would build? Initially I would have thought not. But in shuffling through positives and negatives, in the gains and losses of the bundled-in performance addenda, I'd want to wind the engine up to a full Monty 213 kW/380 Nm for my $48,000 investment. Everything else, though, even the active safety gear that was impressively transparent and unobtrusive throughout test, is pretty much right on the money. That said, I can't help wondering if a base 3-door manual, possibly priced below a $40,000 threshold, might find its way across the big pond sometime later, if not perhaps sooner. As enticing as that prospect might be, as what's currently the only 3-door Golf, richer, money can buy remains mightily impressive, difficult to fault and easy to recommend.